Welcome everyone to the Puerto Rican Health Summit. Today we're going to be discussing training and mentorship for building the Puerto Rican Latinx pipeline. And we are joined by three panelists, Nurse Susana Gonzalez, Dr. Maria Munoz, and Dr. Pilar Ortega, who will share not only their personal and professional experiences working in the healthcare field, but their experiences serving and navigating support systems to bolster opportunities for emerging aspiring Latino health professionals. My name is Lisa Ponte Soto. I will be serving as your moderator for this session. I am president and CEO of Tanoma Consulting. I'm also an adjunct faculty member with Malcolm X College and DePaul University. And I am one of the co-chairs of the Puerto Rican Agenda Health and Wellness Committee. I consider myself a public health advocate, educator, and researcher. And you can read more about my previous experiences and career trajectory on the screen. Help us frame this conversation for today and why diversity matters in the healthcare field. The Institute of Medicine echoed the value of diversity, stating that a diverse employee base that is reflective or representative of the service community may be the one most single significant factor contributing to issues of disparities to care. So an unequal workforce equals an unequal treatment in the healthcare setting, meaning that if we don't have an equitable or representative workforce, we are setting ourselves to fail and increasing the potential of unequal treatment, unequal access, and unequal outcomes in healthcare among communities of color. Here we see the population shifts with regards to how we have over time seen within the Latino community a shift from the minority to majority minorities. Not a term that I necessarily prefer, but a term that we commonly see utilized in reference to the boom or the growth and the steady growth in particular with Latinos in the US. Latino growth population within the US has boasted over 52% since 2002 alone, according to the Pew Research Center. Latinos have been among the fastest growing, and that growth has been steady. If you see the numbers, in 2010, Latinos represented 16.3% of the population. In 2020, that as of 2020, or more or less 2019, according to the US Census, we reached 8.5% of the population, which was 26% growth. If you compare it to the growth since 2002, the growth is still fastest and steady, but it has slowed down somewhat from what we projected or expected. But there are still some projections with the expectations that the Latino or Latinx population will boast around 30% or about 1/3 of the US population by 2050. Of the 100 of the largest US counties within the US that comprise about 3/4 of all Latinos, we're looking at California, Texas, and Florida being among those top states, and Arizona and our very own Illinois, where the Puerto Rican Agenda of Chicago is housed, is among those. Also, New Mexico, New York, and New Jersey. And you can see the growth in that image to the right of your screen, with statistics demonstrating that the South has actually seen the nation's biggest Latino population growth since 2010. Within the state of Illinois, Latinos comprise 17.5% of the population. And that's in comparison to almost nearly 76% of the white counterpart population. Latinos within the city of Chicago represent 1.9 million residents, meaning that's 1 in 5 Chicagoans are of Latinx descent, predominantly of Mexican or Puerto Rican background, but also representing Central Americans and Cuban Americans. Latinos in the Chicagoland area have increasingly become more suburban. The suburban Cook County comprises the second largest population, Latinx or Latino population, again, with predominant representation of Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans. Since the 1990s, an upward mobility and gentrification of urban and poor Latinx communities in the Chicago metropolitan area have contributed to the suburbanization or reconcentration of Latinx in the suburban Cook County. A considerable number of Latinx, particularly Mexican and Puerto Rican descent, have migrated or relocated to South Suburban Cook. And this is important because as we look at the representation of Latinos and that growth, we know that there is an increasing growing demand to have a workforce that supports that need. But we still have systemic gaps and issues, from lack of health insurance to the built environment to discrimination to social determinants of health. It is not a factor of victim blaming, but rather thinking more about what we need to do as an industry to support emerging Latinos to go and grow into the healthcare profession. As you see here, we have very low representation across the board when we look at racial ethnic minorities throughout various different career paths in the healthcare field, including medicine, nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, health service managers. And in particular, when we look at leadership roles, those percentages are even less. We're looking at 1% or definitely below 1% across the industry. And those are the key decision makers. It is very disheartening to know that other people are making the decisions about a population that they may know very little about or have, at the very least, a lack of connection with regards to a lived experience knowledge. So this is critically important. And now we're going to talk about why we need to work with our healthcare professionals and our expert panelists to help build this pipeline for career advancement. Researchers say that it's just not one thing. You can have a lot of talent, and that's not going to necessarily attribute to your success. You need mentorship support, but it's beyond mentorship. It's the sponsorship of individuals who are truly invested in you, the madrinas and the padrinos, but also the combination of those two elements with networking. Having that network and building that social, political acumen or your social capital is really vital. You look at various different pathways that support that through mentorship, sponsorship, etc., from networks, training and skill building, and pipeline development for capacity building. That means your support systems that allow you to have the funding and the structure to grow, as well as informal and formal pathways, connecting socially through social media or working with professional associations, as well as getting those additional skill building opportunities in terms of workshops and additional training, much more beyond what you would get in your classroom or your training programs. Again, echoing the value personally for myself of a network, and looking at the opportunities that I've had. This is just a small snippet. It's like a cross-sectional study, right? That small snapshot of some of the experiences that I've been blessed with in connecting with very rich, strong networks of individuals who are like-minded, who are forward-thinking, and who are serious about making actionable change in our communities. And so here, presenting some of the sort of recipes or elements that you may hear about from our three panelists about building that student pipeline, working through academic institutions and other professional associations, building those critical partnerships through some of the professional associations and groups that you're going to hear about today, and working with coaches, mentors, sponsors, etc. So I leave you there to introduce our first panelist for today, Nurse Susana Gonzalez. She is a nurse educator and consultant with ASI Home Care. She is past president of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses in the state of Illinois, for the Illinois chapter and the national board member of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses. She is an adjunct faculty at the ADN and at an ADN and a Master Entry Schools of Nursing program. She's an amazing nurse advocate and leader who fully commits to everything she embraces, and I can truly attest to that. Her purpose in life is to leave the world just a little bit better than she found it. She is an exemplary role model and a servant leader dedicated to aspiring nurses through mentorship and developing the next generation of bilingual, bicultural, Spanish-speaking nurses and promoting all levels of education in changing their lives. Susana has been dedicated to addressing healthcare issues for women, infants, and children, as well as the nursing profession. She served on numerous national, state, and local boards, including March of Dimes of Chicago, Mujeres Latinas en Acción, the Chicago Bilingual Nurse Consortium, among many others. She is past president and active member of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses Illinois chapter and a national board member. She's volunteered on several medical missions in Puerto Rico post Hurricane Maria, and she's received numerous recognitions and awards. The ones that you see here on the screen are just a few that highlight her compassionate and servant leadership work, including the Regional Volunteerism and Service Award from Nursing Spectrum, Illinois Maternal and Child Health Coalition, Asvita Excellence and Health Award, March of Dimes Outstanding Nurse of the Year Award, National Association of Hispanic Nurses Community Service Award, and the March of Dimes Jonas Salk Nurse of the Year Award. So without further ado, I introduce you to Nurse Susana Gonzalez. Susana, adelante.
Thank you so much. Lisa, you're so phenomenal in navigating and promoting these wonderful workshops that we do for our Latino community. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about Hispanic role models in health careers, something that is very, very dear to me as an individual and a professional nurse. Next slide. So briefly, as Lisa says, I am past president of Non-Illinois. I'm also on the American Nurses Association, the Illinois board, which again is kind of like a nice entity of breaking barriers, breaking ceilings, you know, because the American Nurses Association is primarily a white organization, right? So we're trying to get in there as well. So we're working hard to do Hispanic role models and serve as servant leaders for Illinois and obviously our national members across the state. Next slide. So NON has a mission and a purpose, and we love to celebrate the culture, caring, and the spirit of Hispanic nurses. And we believe we are the leading voice of health for our communities. There's no other premier nurse-centered organization for Hispanic nurses. We're very devoted to promoting safe, quality healthcare to our Latino communities and individuals, and we work in conjunction to make sure we recognize excellent nurses via formal, informal mentoring opportunities and working as a center of excellence. Our goal is like many other goals. We want to create a cadre of highly qualified Latino nurses that are bilingual, bicultural, and value advancing education, professional and leadership skills, and really seeking opportunities for mentorship. We work to recruit the next generation of nurses. We hope while we represent 18% or 19% if we speak with Dr. Aida Giacello of the US population right now, depending on which data you're using, anywhere between 5 and 7% of the nursing workforce is of Latino descent. So we really need more, obviously, because we want to mirror the population we serve. Next slide. So we have official and very formal program at the National Association of Hispanic Nurses that was spearheaded and initiated by Dr. Angie Milan. And Angie Milan is one of our past presidents at the national level, but she was also a primary principal investigator of an NIH 5-year grant that developed some very nice tools and some very nice work that can be used by members of the Hispanic nurses throughout the nation. NAN has been around since 1975, and our founding mother, Dr. Murillo Rodi, has since passed. But as the leading profession, right now we have memberships that are quite active across the nation of 49 chapters. Illinois is one, and we take great pride that Illinois is a nice, strong chapter for the nation. So the use of these tools, let's go to the next slide. So, the use of these tools kind of help us and aid us, and they can be used in conjunction of how they are, or you can snip it, or you can take and use slides to lead the conversation and the presentations as we talk to our community, depending if I'm in a middle school or if I'm in a high school or I'm in the early career college school, then I work with presentations that I can take from the slides that were created to use by non-members when they engage in audience. So sometimes we have tools like PowerPoint presentations. There are little snippets and videos that you'll see a few, and there's a mentor database at the national level. But you can see we like to talk about reasons to be a nurse. My colleagues on the board, on the panel, would love to talk about reasons to be a physician. For us, it's about mirroring the population that you're serving with a servant leadership heart. So we really want to make sure that we're trying to make a difference in the health of the Hispanic community. Nurses have lifelong career flexibility. There are very many options to use specialties and locations, salary and benefits, many professional opportunities with a career in nursing, depending what the nurse wants to do and her trajectory in life. Next slide. So a little bit like we were saying about work, a lot of people assume that nurses only work in hospitals, in a medical facility or an institution, and it's a good chunk. It's almost 30%. It kind of continues to fluctuate because as we continue to do more medical and more nurse and more health outside an institution, you'll see shifts in careers. Even our physicians are doing house calls again in some instances, and so are nurses in a home care role. Medical offices with physicians today, many are led with nurse practitioners, advanced practice nurses, or doctors and nurse practitioner facilities are running facilities and institutions and serving great many communities. The usual nurse care facilities, nursing home facilities, extended care facilities, post-acute care rehab today facilities. Much is going into transitional care, and also people who wish to do hospice at home. So there's a lot of opportunities for where a nurse can work, not necessarily always in a hospital. Next slide. So as you can see, some of these profiles that we used at the national level are outstanding nurses that have shared the same challenges that many of our students are facing today and our students will face tomorrow. Many of us were first in a classroom. We were first to go to college. We were first to go to a health career. We want to make sure we open the door for many others that look like us, and we hope that they don't have to engage in the difficulties that many of us had and challenges in other times as we were getting into these opportunities. Next slide. So, as I was saying in the previous slide, in the snippets that we have, these would be a couple of examples and profiles, and they're usually like 60 to 90 seconds, no more than 3-minute little snippets of nursing students talking throughout the 47, 49 chapters of their opportunities. Sylvia was one of our students at Resurrection University. Today, she's a full-fledged nurse, registered nurse working in nursing. Rose is from Arizona, and Edwin was actually from New York. So these students, if we would click on them, you would listen to a couple of minutes of why I love nursing, or what kind of registered nurse they want to be, or dress codes and clinicals, or study tips, or students talk about what it's like for them to find the field of nursing. In Edwin's case, we had young men talk about men in the field of nursing and their role and how they felt and how they're learning. How about paying for college? So a lot of the snippets that we have on our website look like our children or our children's children, look like professionals, and are people that have chosen nursing, all type of nursing, from nurses at the bedside to, as Lisa mentioned earlier, nurse administrators already and in facilities. And si se puede, right? As Latinos, we can. So next slide. So again, we talked a little bit about their stories, their degree, their specialties. I chose I have 2 bachelors, I have 2 masters. I chose the route of education. We have days in people's lives that we follow. We talk about goals. We talk about decisions of becoming a nurse. So sometimes when we go out into the community and we speak to students, again, we tailor it to the audience that we're trying to inspire and to mentor and to encourage to seek a career in healthcare or to seek a career in nursing as a career. And a little bit more again, for the past few years, that has been one of our strongest points, I believe, as mentors, nursing role models, and having people that look like you and identify with your culture and want to be a part of the service to our community and making a difference, to serve in bilingual, bicultural institutions, and to serve in facilities where the patients value that their provider can speak to them in their language, or their provider can identify with their culture and their value of their particular community that they come from. And next slide. So as I mentioned, a lot of this information is spearheaded by the National Association of Hispanic Nurses. It's 49 chapters across the nation. On any given chapter, there are nurses like myself in Illinois and the current board and many members that we've done formal and informal mentoring pipeline programs where we're linking with either student nurses that are in nursing school or with potential students to be nurses that are getting out of high schools and trying to get into nursing schools. as well as nurses that have been novice nurses and are seeking to change the field. So we look for these opportunities within the organization and how to collaborate and support and inspire one another, which is what the organization does in essence. So opportunities to check both the national and the local website. Next slide. And that's it. I am Susanna. I am past president of Illinois for a couple years, and I still serve in any capacity within the organization. So we're here to serve and to work and collaborate, and that's why I'm here today, serving and collaborating with two amazing physicians that are also working to be servant leaders in our community. And I'll defer to Lisa.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nurse Susana Gonzalez, for sharing your amazing experiences and the experiences of the students that you support and serve through the National Hispanic Nurses Association. Really amazing, amazing work in helping support students in that pipeline. Next, I am delighted to introduce Dr. Maria Munoz. Dr. Munoz is a native of Puerto Rico. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the University of Illinois at Chicago and her Doctorate of Medicine from the University of Illinois Abraham Lincoln School of Medicine in Chicago. She completed her residency in obstetrics and gynecology at the Illinois Masonic Medical Center. She held various leadership roles as part of her faculty role at the Illinois Masonic Medical Center for 15 years, which included training residents and medical students and actively serving on multiple medical staff committees, including the medical executive and the operating room improvement and quality committees. She served on medical staff at the Lincoln Park Hospital, which was formerly Grant Hospital, and subsequently at Rush University Medical Center and Norwegian American Hospital. At Rush, she continued her interest in medical education, actively involved in resident training, and at Norwegian American Hospital, she chaired the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology Quality and Improvement Committee, implementing policies and protocols that sustained the foundation for a safer clinical environment. More recently, she served on the medical staff at Amita Resurrection Medical Center, where she continued her trajectory of resident training. She is a highly sought after speaker on women's health issues and surgical innovations and procedures. Dr. Munoz is an active community leader serving on a board of as a board member of the Hispano Care and dedicated to the Dimes, the Respect Life Committee at St. Clement Church and Heather's House, where she helps address Latino health issues and helps coordinate health fairs, blanket programs, and support for homeless and housing. Dr. Munoz recently was featured in the Latina Style magazine on a COVID-19 pandemic lead story. And she considers her garden her sanctuary, but she considers her caretaker role for her 97-year-old father as the most gratifying part of her role. So without further ado, I am delighted to introduce you to Dr. Munoz. Dr. Munoz, adelante.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to everybody. I am actually very honored to be here today with all of you who are very exciting leaders in our community. I don't pretend to have Susie's background or her associations, but today I actually come here representing every little girl in Humboldt Park where I grew up who has a dream to become a physician. If you actually build their strong roots and you help them flourish by supporting their goals to become physicians or nurses for that matter. You actually are supporting the community. If I could have the next slide. In medicine, as in probably every field, there are high risks, but there are definitely high rewards. There's nothing more exciting for me, or there wasn't anything more exciting for me than to deliver my first baby. That was, as corny as it may seem, it was quite exciting. And when I actually went into medical school, I thought I was going to go into psychiatry. And doing that clerkship in obstetrics just totally changed my mind. And that's one of the nice things about medicine, is that there are so many different roles that you could play, whether, it's a different field, depending on what your likes and dislikes are, or if you want to go into education, or if you want to just pursue a career in research, or if you want to pursue a career in actual clinical medicine. There are many roles. And in today's world, the technology is amazing, to be able to do robotic surgery from a remote area. I think it's absolutely outstanding. Next slide. The realities of our dreams, however, especially in our community, in the Puerto Rican community, are multiple. 75% of medical students in the US actually come from affluent neighborhoods or affluent households. And there has been absolutely no change since 1988. This means that, we probably feel out of place in most of these environments, since most of us do not come from affluent households. Latinos represent only 5.7% of medical school graduates. That's very low considering the population where we are at a much higher percentage. In 2002, Puerto Rican admissions to medical schools was 56%. That is the applicants versus actual admissions. In 2012, the rate was 49%. So there almost seems to be a trend in the negative direction, which we really would like to take care of. Total GPA, and this is one of the biggest obstacles to Latino students entering medical school. The total GPA for white applicants is usually 3.77, and for Latinos is 3.62. So we really have to focus and emphasize on early education and improving those GPAs so that Latinos could compete at a much better level with the other applicants. MCAT scores also for white applicants 512, and for Latinos is only 506. So right off the bat, we're competing at a level with other applicants that's that puts us at an underdog position. Next slide, please. The financial investment. Average medical school cost is about $200,000 for medical school. That is astonishing, considering that most Latinos probably don't make that in a lifetime. And for our families to think about the investment that they're putting into students. I often hear, ay, mijo, the cost is so high. Why don't you choose something that's a little bit shorter, a career that's shorter or less expensive? So you have to actually involve families at an early state in the game, because they have to realize that, yes, you do have a high investment financially and emotionally, for that matter. We don't see our families while we're in medical school for the most part, because we're too busy studying. And the financial investment is tremendous, but there are high rewards. Having that degree, could get you places and could perhaps help you get you out of the poverty level that most Latinos live in. Those are all my slides. I don't have as many slides as Susie did, but hopefully that gives you an idea as to the state of affairs for Puerto Rican students in medicine.
Thank you so much, Dr. Munoz, really eye-opening on so many levels. Several points that you made with regards to just the investment, not only the financial investment, but the emotional toll and investment that it takes sometimes, especially as first generation college students, to kind of translate what that investment is to our families so that they can understand and be most supportive. So we can continue that in our conversation after we hear from our next esteemed panelist for today, Dr. Pilar Ortega. Dr. Ortega is an emergency physician and an assistant clinical professor at the University of Illinois at Chicago, departments of emergency medicine and medical education, where she directs and teaches the medical Spanish program for the College of Medicine's Hispanic Center of Excellence. Dr. Ortega is co-founder and immediate past president for the Medical Organization for Latino Advancement, or MOLA, a nonprofit professional physician organization that aims to address health disparities for Latinx communities, to advance the careers of Latinx students and health professionals. She wrote the textbook Spanish and the Medical Interview, currently in its second edition, and is the founder and president of the National Association of Medical Spanish, NAM, a nonprofit interdisciplinary association that aims to improve health communication for Spanish-speaking populations. Some of Dr. Ortega's recognitions have included her selection as part of the 2017 Crain's Chicago Business 40 Under 40. As a 2019 recipient of Spain's Royal National Academy of Medicine 2018 Award for Health Information, Communication, and Dissemination, Dr. Ortega is a nationally and internationally recognized author, speaker, and researcher focusing on preparing medical students, physicians, and health systems to care for linguistically and culturally diverse patient populations. Adelante, Dr. Ortega. Bienvenida.
Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. And I'm so proud to be part of this amazing and inspiring group of speakers and yourself as moderator, Lisa. Thank you so much for welcoming me. And primarily today, what I want to talk about is several opportunities for aspiring health professionals and current health professionals to become more engaged in building this pipeline, which is such a critical topic that I'm happy to contribute to today. So the first thing is that, as you can see from the amazing energy of our panelists so far, that this is a labor of love for us. When we dedicate our careers to caring for the Hispanic Latinx population, when we dedicate our careers to building the pipeline, we do it out of passion. We know that we need to leave a legacy behind us for other people to have it a little bit easier to achieve the kinds of academic, clinical, and professional success that some of us have been lucky to be able to achieve. So that is the reason why several co-founders and myself initiated MOLA. MOLA turned 4 years just about a month ago. And so we're a pretty baby organization, but we had been having conversations for a long time about needing an organization that was able to connect us, right? Create a network of health professionals, not only physicians, health professionals who either are Latino, identify as Latino, or have a passion for serving Hispanic Latinx populations. And so we decided to start MOLA because we felt that there was a gap there for us. Next slide. So MOLA was born out of this need that we felt in our own careers. And so we became a nonprofit organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have a board of directors of 21 individuals, many of whom are physicians, but not all of them are physicians. So we have among us, for example, several individuals who are social workers. We have several public health professionals. We have a number of different health professions represented among our board and among our membership. And we have a very large and significant cohort of students that are members of our organization. because we find it is so critical to build that next generation of leaders for Mola and to give that next generation the tools to make their pathway easier. So the main programs that Mola is comprised of include the Education and Research Program. With this program, I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, because it is one of the key elements, I think, to Mola's success. We are principally responsible for our annual conference, which is the Latino Health Symposium, which happens each October. And also for our Mola Michael Reese Scholars Program, which I'll expand upon in a little bit. We have a public health program in which our team reaches out to the community actively, sharing information, for example, relevant to right now, the COVID-19 vaccine and vaccination efforts, vaccination access, and focusing on those efforts through our Mola Se Vacuna campaign, sharing pictures and stories of our own members getting vaccinated, and answering questions and serving as expert panelists and different webinars for the community. We have an advocacy program that focuses on improving wellness and leadership among representation, so increasing that representation of Latinos, so we have a voice in health policy and influencing the decisions that are made on a legislative level. We have a mentorship program in which students starting at the high school level, many are at the undergraduate level as well, pre-med, pre-health, and at the medical student level, join our program as mentees and are paired with mentors or mentorship groups in which they receive both peer mentoring and also mentorship from a health professional or physician leader within Mola. And then they have activities on one Saturday a month in which they talk about specific topics that are relevant. For example, how to write a curriculum vitae, what should be included. You can get an opportunity to get that reviewed, taking professional headshots. And those are only a few of the examples. Others are clinical topics, so learning about a particular field, like for example, my field, emergency medicine, or somebody else's field, so that people can be exposed to a variety of careers, not only in medicine, but also other aspects of healthcare. We have a wellness program. This is where a lot of our networking lies. So we have activities just to get together. We have cafecitos that now are virtual, but they're still fun, and people can connect and get to know each other and really build their network, because we know that a lot of the success that we have as professionals actually happens behind the scenes. It's not just about getting all the education you can, but it's a lot of times about who you know and who can connect you. So that is such a key part, and also supporting strategies for physicians and students who are suffering so much right now because of all of the tragedies going on around us, the burnout that is happening because how people are overburdened with requests to be that diversity leader at their institution, and all of the things that are emotionally burdening so many minorities, especially those who also identify as Black, for example, or Afro-Latino colleagues. This is a really tough time. So supporting that experience and giving some techniques for wellness is super critical to support that personal aspect of our lives. And our newest program is our International Medical Graduate Program. We have a growing membership of international medical graduates, which is a wonderful resource for our patients, because these individuals have training that they have from their home countries, and they just have a really hard time identifying resources and ways to get their licenses and get into residency programs in the US. But we really need them. We need their service, and they're ready to serve. And Mola is helping them build that pipeline as well. Next. And so to tell you just a little bit more about the Mola Michael Reese Scholar Program. Michael Reese is our principal sponsor for this amazing program, in which we annually select a small cohort between 10 and 15 students who receive scholarship funds and then get matched one-on-one with a mentor, and get selected essentially because they presented a project idea and a career goal that was aligned with MOLA's mission. So by definition, we know these students are ready to contribute in an impactful way and are ready to turn these wonderful ideas with impact for the Hispanic Latinx community into academic action. So we are going to help them to generate a successful project, create a research question that's answerable within the time frame of the project, and then to present their findings at our symposium, and hopefully to present their work at other conferences and to publish. Many of our students are able to actually have successful publications, which is a wonderful outcome as well. Next. And the final opportunity that I wanted to make everybody aware of is our partner organization that MOLA has that was founded even more recently, which is the National Association of Medical Spanish. So one of MOLA's goals is that we improve physician and health professional communication with Spanish-speaking patients. And so we started this organization, which is national in scope. So we have individuals from everywhere in the country that are part of this organization that really wants to standardize and evaluate how we teach and assess medical Spanish. Because even though we know that a lot of the students in our pipeline are bilingual, it's wonderful. They have some heritage Spanish skills from their households. We know the levels are variable. And so they have amazing skills that we can build upon, but they need training. They need training to professionalize those skills so that they can practice just as well as they can do in English, they can do in Spanish with some training. So faculty need training, the students in the pipeline need training, and we need to acknowledge and value the amazing skill that multilingualism has among our unique cohort of students that we really want to get into the pipeline of healthcare and medicine. So I wanted to share that opportunity because we have a lot of projects that we do regularly, and some of which receive funding through this organization that I want to invite anyone who is interested in contributing to that field to join us. And again, this one is not for only for physicians. We have, in fact, many language professors, linguists, interpreters, translators, and people in other areas of healthcare fields involved in this organization as well. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share these options with all of you. And I look forward to hearing from you if you have any other questions or ideas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortega. What an amazing list of opportunities. All around, very comprehensive opportunities for emerging healthcare professionals that are offered through MOLA and your new association. Congratulations as well on your 4 years with MOLA, as well as establishing this new, very important National Association of Medical Spanish. It is so incredibly valuable to be able to bridge that communication gap without making any assumptions, right? And that training that we don't get with medical terminology in dual languages when we're serving our communities. So again, I commend you for all of your wonderful work in building these communities and these spaces.
Thank you. These are just some pictures of our activities back when we were live in person.
I think I was at one of those. So before we move on to start a discussion and questions. Thank you again, Dr. Ortega, Nurse Susana, and Dr. Munoz. We're now going to open for questions. It was just so inspiring hearing a little bit of the work that you are all doing, because I say a little bit, even though it may seem like a lot, because I know you're just providing us a snippet of the many things that you're all invested in and have contributed to supporting emerging Latinx and Puerto Rican youth across the career pipeline. Would you be able to share a little bit about what you feel were some of those key ingredients to your success? Maybe if you could share one thing that you feel like helped kind of push you over in a positive way, right, to being able to enter this pathway.
I can start with that. So great question. And I think that for me, the answer would be turning that passion into action. I think that I, like probably many of you, observe deficiencies, right? We observe deficiencies in our system. We observe barriers in our system for people to access care. We observe things that people maybe are not doing in maybe the best way, whether it's you observe a health professional that maybe could be doing something different, better, or a systemic barrier that is in the way of your patient getting the care they need. And Mola was a way for us to turn those complaints, if you will, into action. So we saw problems and here's what we're going to do about it. Instead of just talking about the deficiencies, is kind of turning that energy into something positive and making an impact. And so I know that many of the people that are listening here, probably all of you, have ideas about things that are wrong with our system, things that are wrong with wherever your institution or whatever you're a part of. And so finding those ways to turn that knowledge and that experience that you bring to the table into action is what I would recommend, because sometimes other people who don't have your lived experiences, they may not even have realized that those deficiencies were there. And so speaking up and making an impact in that way to turn that into action is kind of how you find your niche, your space that makes you unique and really a great candidate for future positions as well.
Wonderful.
If I may, there are three things that really come to mind when we talk about ingredients that have helped us. And one of them is certain personality traits. The word that comes to mind is perseverance. Being able to stay focused on the goal, that is graduating from medical school and being a good physician. Keep your eyes on the goal type of mentality. Being able to work through adversity, being able to work through difficult times and obstacles, no matter how difficult the journey might be. I mean, this not only makes you a better physician, but obviously it makes you a better person. Being able to accept constructive criticism, I said, helps you build a better personal persona. And common sense. This is something that it's very difficult to teach medical students. You may be book smart, but having common sense. And I think that for Puerto Ricans, having lived through certain adversities, help us in this fashion, and that we may not have all the smarts, all the GPAs and all the MCAT scores that other students may have, but we have a lot more common sense because of our experiences. The other one is family. I can't even fathom getting through medical school without the support of a family. I come from a very academic-oriented family. I'm the youngest of three. Both my sister and my brother had finished college. At the time when, Puerto Ricans were not exactly at the forefront of education in Chicago. So for me, going to college was not an option. It was what I wanted to become, where I wanted to go, and how to get there. And this is something that we have to address, especially when we're mentoring students, is to involve the families, because they're very integral parts of our lives, especially in the Latino culture. And sometimes they get afraid. They're fearful that, their children may be choosing professions that are well beyond their scope, beyond their means. And we have to help them realize that, yes, they could do this if you put your mind to it. And the third is a strong clinical support system. Having mentors in medicine in clinical medicine, not just physicians, but nurses. I can't thank the nurses enough that supported me through those difficult times, and who fed me, who told me to go to bed in the middle of the night because they knew how tired I was, as well as in those physicians that I tried to emulate every day of my life, that I could still hear their voices in the back of my head, telling me or teaching me how to respect patients, which is another thing that is essential in medicine, is to have respect and treat everybody equally. It doesn't matter what their background is, you treat everyone the same way. And these are things that, certain people stand out in my mind that were involved in my education that I try to think of every day, especially when I'm in difficult situations.
Fantastic. I think those are all very key, important points. You mentioned being the youngest of three. I'm the youngest of three, and I don't know. I would say that's probably one of the few perks of being the youngest of three, was that being in a family of first generation college educated students. I had the benefit of being the youngest, because what would I have done without my brother, who was able to help me navigate what a CV was, or at that time, write a resume, and all of the things that I needed to do, how to write a cover letter, things like that, that we all take for granted, that Dr. Ortega mentioned. Mola is able to help facilitate, and I'm sure that Nan does as well. Susana, could you speak to some of those challenges or barriers that your aspiring nurse students face, and how you help them facilitate or navigate those challenges?
You know what? I think, as my colleagues were saying, sometimes in life, when people truly find their purpose or their passion, or why they're here, it's very important. And I knew early on I was here to make as much of a difference during my lifetime that I could. But we were in a poor environment. I grew up very poor. My mom and dad both worked 2 factory jobs, and all they would say to us is that education makes change happen. So we were born and raised here because they sought what every mom and dad seeks for their offsprings: a better opportunity, a better life, a better chance. And God was very instrumental. So in there, God and familia. And just because we're poor doesn't mean we don't love. So we just figure it out, right? We just figure it out. And in every opportunity, through any barriers and any racism and any blocked opportunities that kept happening, God was there and family was there, and we just sort of overcame it. What little difference I've made, it's because somewhere in my life I had people planted in me seeds that were nurtured, were valued, and somehow I plant those seeds forward. I like to inspire and motivate and enable others to succeed. I remember something, I think when one of the docs was talking, someone literally told me in my nursing career, from a different ethnic background, that I was going to not succeed, and that their job in life would be to make sure people like me did not succeed. I don't know why today made me think of her. And today when I teach, I know I teach, and I tell my students, especially the minority students that look like me and come from backgrounds from me, I say, I am here to help you succeed. I want you to give me 100%, and I will give you 100%, and I will help you succeed. I really work hard to make sure my students believe that they are valued and that they are important. And that comes from sometimes the path that we have walked, right? The path that we had to live to become who we are. So I don't know, it just made me think of that. while my colleagues were talking.
That is so unfortunate, but it's so common. And, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but what a beautiful way to turn it around. I think that's one of the reasons I teach. There's so many of those negative experiences actually pushed me to keep going. Sort of that mentality of, I'm going to prove you wrong despite of what you may think of me. Yeah, I'm not going to let your thoughts, your influences affect me and deter me from my goals or my career goals or path. So I'm so glad that you've turned that around. And that's one of the reasons that I also teach. I feel like I have the responsibility to be in the classroom, be that voice, be that representative. So as we close for today, maybe perhaps you can each reflect on the positive mentors, right? Those coaches and those people that help kind of give you that boost when you needed it the most, or created opportunities or created the space for you to be able to continue to build your skills or be able to continue progressing. Maybe it was a job opportunity, maybe it was just a kind gesture or word. Um, or maybe it was just feeling like you were seen or valued in your profession as in your critical role in contributing to the healthcare field. So what would you say, who was that one or person that you may want to acknowledge now as your padrino or madrina that kind of gave you that love that you needed?
You know what? I want to really say that this is like everything turns around and it's an infinity. It comes back together. But years ago, Carmen Velasquez, who is CEO of Alivio Medical Center, and Dr. Ida Giacello, Esther Chamarella, they used to do these Chicago Hispanic Health Coalition consortium symposiums, whatever. And I remember from afar looking at Carmen one day doing a groundbreaking. She was actually using a shovel and they were building Alivio Medical Center that became obviously one of the premier medical centers of FH, federally qualified FQHCs, qualified healthcare centers in the world. They're just amazing. What a stellar. Now they have like dozens of sites, but Carmen was somebody to admire. Dr. Giacello, I could listen to Dr. Giacello all day long. I love her accent and her wisdom. I could stare at her and listen. And I used to watch her and emulate her, right? I want to grow up to be like her. She would speak with class and wisdom and passion. I was like, who is that lady? And then when you find out she was Puerto Rican, it was like, wow, she's one of us, right? So, people like that, your raza, right? You identify with them, and it's like, when I met Sonia Sotomayor, I can still feel the chill I get to be in her presence. Her presence. It was better than being in Hillary's presence or being in Obama's presence, Sonia Sotomayor, justice, and those little things like that make us, and when a student quotes you as a professor in a speech or in something in a paper they wrote, and then you've made some little difference in somebody's life, that you were paying it forward, you're planting those seeds. So that was good moments. A couple people, did that. So as students, I was like, bro, you wrote about me. So that was good.
Dr. Munoz, anyone that you can think of that you would like to acknowledge or add, or even an anecdotal story that you'd like to share?
Sure, absolutely. Unfortunately for me, there's not many, if any, at the time I was training Puerto Rican physicians that I could look up to at all. There were, like the Cuban older physicians that came from Cuba, but not very many Puerto Ricans. So there's one particular physician at Illinois Masonic who unfortunately has passed away. His name was Dr. Ephraim Greer. He was an African-American obstetrician gynecologist who grew up in the South. and used to tell us stories all the time about his growing up in the South and how he used to get beat up with, because he was African American. But he was probably one of the most influential people in my life. He was funny. He was strict. He was excellent. He was an excellent physician. He was an excellent clinician. And he was always something that he was always someone that I wanted to look up to, that I looked up to and that I wanted to be like. And now when I'm operating, I'm always, or doing something, I'm always saying, what would Greer do in this situation? What would Greer say in this situation? And, I talk in my own head through the things that he used to tell us, do this, do that. Make sure that you get dressed appropriately. These patients are coming in to see you. You need to act professional. You need to look professional. They're coming in to see you. They respect you, and they deserve the same respect back from you. So things like that. And those are the types of things that I try to instill in the newer medical students. The same things that I was taught, how to respect the patients, how to dress appropriately, how to address them appropriately. And he was definitely someone that I looked up to, and I continue to look up to.
Thank you so much, both of you, or all of you again, for being here today, sharing your stories, sharing your heart, and also not just sharing today, but beyond sharing your stories today, all of that you have given in support of other Puerto Rican and Latino emerging healthcare professionals. As we close, we wanted to share a few important resources so that you can connect with the Puerto Rican Agenda and other services offered through the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, El Rescate Transitional Living, Trans Chicago, and Vida Sida. We also want to share additional resources from some of the panelists here today: the National Association of Hispanic Nurses, MOLA, Salud America, and Illinois Unidos. And lastly, we want to share that we have an upcoming discussion next week featuring Dr. Marta Cerda and Dr. David Marquez, as we will be discussing recruiting and retaining Latinx older adults in research. And that session is next Wednesday, April 28th at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And we thank you again for joining us today as part of the Puerto Rican Agenda Health Summit. You can connect with the Puerto Rican Agenda at the website listed on the screen, www.puertoricanchicago.org. And you can contact myself or any of the presenters today at the emails listed there. Before we go, we ask for you to kind of take a moment to reflect on those critical individuals that have helped you succeed, and to really consider the importance and the value of giving back, whether it's giving back to aspiring professionals that may not know how to create their own pathway, may need a little bit more guidance. Think about those opportunities that you had that would have not been there if someone hadn't helped you. Pay it forward. Also, maybe there's other ways that you can pay it forward in the community by giving time and service. Our panelists today emulate that leadership. So really think about those opportunities. Also reflect on those campeonas, guerreras, and padrinos, madrinas that helped you succeed, and continue to think about how you can stay connected with them to create additional opportunities. We need more and more of those spaces and opportunities to continue to grow and help support, not just for supporting the workforce for the sake of supporting the workforce, but because it is essential. It is a truly life-saving opportunity when we have culturally competent, well-trained, talented Latinos and Puerto Rican physicians, clinicians, nurses, administrators at the forefront, helping drive and support our communities and improve and towards the improvement of our community's health. Thank you. On behalf of the Puerto Rican Agenda of Chicago, muchísimas gracias, Nurse Susana, Dr. Ortega, Dr. Munoz. Thank you to our co-chairs for the Health and Wellness Committee, Dr. Aida Giachello, Ms. Nelly and all of the planning committee members. We hope that, again, you take time to reflect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Be kind and loving to one another. Mi gente, lean in love, compassion, and empathy. Together, we can make a difference. Peace and love.